we just started making crazy money. Like, so I'm doing this in moonlight, right? We're doing it after work and on the weekends and just ridiculous amounts of money. And it was kind of when.
Welcome to Hello Grow,
the number one growth podcast in the world.
I'm Court Brady.
I'm Carlos Souza.
And today we have Josh VANORDEN. Dude, you have the dopest name. Where's VANORDEN from?
Dutch.
The Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
You're the Flying Dutchman. We're stoked to have you on the podcast, Josh. Quick introduction is you just exited from VO Mechanical, which is a mechanical plumbing company, but you guys do all things. You do gas lines, you do water lines, you do hospitals, you guys do Department of Defense, all sorts of different mechanical work. And you just had a multi-million-dollar exit from that company a month ago.
Yep, first of May.
So this is raw. This is your first interview post-exit.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We've known each other for 4 years. We've been to Mexico together, Costa Rica together, Belize. We've gone through miles and miles of caves together in Belize. And I described you to a group of our friends recently as the most different person in the best way of anyone I ever met. And what I meant by that is you have created this unique way to see the world that I would call your own personal religion, but you're not this evangelist that has to force it down other people's throats. You're a massive success, but you're the most humble person that I've ever met. And you also don't have a college degree, I think, but you're the smartest dude I know. And you're in good company because Carlos doesn't have a degree and I don't have a degree.
At least the three of us.
as well.
Three amigos.
The three amigos.
The three amigos. So really pumped to have you on. The agenda today is we're going to go through your journey of how you got into VO, how you grew it, the things that were kind of the staring into the abyss, chewing on glass moments of like, what have I done? Why? That quote, remember when you wanted what you now have? And you're like, why did I ever want this? So we're going to talk about a couple of those moments and then what the exit process was like, your emotions, how you decided to do it, and what's your life like now and what's next. And on top of that, after we go through that journey, we're going to talk about purpose and how entrepreneurs and sales leaders find their purpose as they go on this entrepreneurial journey. Is that all right?
Sounds awesome. Let's do this.
So just give us the baseline. How'd you get started with VO? And from your perspective, tell us what VO Mechanical does.
So really we are focused on plumbing, HVAC, and process. So our niche is pharmaceutical, welding, specialty stuff, med gas, things that are a little more technical and a lot harder for people to get into. So it's kind of made us a little bit more unique to the world. I started as a young punk, right? My dad decided he needed an employee, so I was his first employee. He leveraged our house, right, to buy a truck and start a company and have some type of I guess backing for the bank to lend him the money, right? And I was doing the worst projects. Like, he made me do it all, so.
How old were you?
I was 14. So it was kind of probably before any restrictions on the job site for kids to show up. But he had me do it all. I was digging all the time. I was, in the sun, just baking and trying to learn how to be an adult at 14, right? So I hated, I would say I hated it. I was always frustrated a little bit with my pops, because it was hard, right? Like, all my friends got to have pool parties and do their thing, and, I was working at 14. So I was learning how to kind of manage my own money, not really understanding why he was doing it, but now I do. But I got in, I started the apprenticeship program at 18. So my last year of high school was paid for by the school, kind of had a good segue into the apprenticeship program. And I just journeyed out at 20, maybe 21. And 2 probably 2 years learning how to weld, doing some of the processed stainless and the fancy TIG, right? The TIG stuff and fusing cool metals together is the draw. It's fun. It's cool. It's building something interesting. You know what I mean? And I got pulled into the office. Really, my dad was like, "Let's start teaching you the business side of things." I was over my head. It was over my head, right? But he, I didn't even know how to use a fax machine at the time. So that was how you would submit
I don't know how
costs.
to use one either. So you're,
It's the weirdest thing how people do it, or had to do it back in the day. But sending your proposals, right, via fax to the GCs and getting everybody's proposals to you. Email wasn't a thing, right? So that was how you communicated that. And then you'd package it up, send it off, and hopefully, I guess, win the project, or, hopefully you had enough money in it. It was just one of those things. We didn't have a lot of good intelligence. My dad wasn't a business guy either. So we were technicians really trying our hardest to be business guys.
when did you take over? And also, maybe we can touch on that for a second. What advice do you have for technicians that are evolving or transitioning into business owners that started in a similar way? What were some of those hurdles that you had to overcome? And do you have any advice on how to overcome those hurdles faster or with less friction?
The schooling element, right? Like having some executive education, like going to, seeing some of these college programs actually have like, hey, this is an executive program. So it's just for us that we're trying to manage a business, and they just see some stuff that's in their MBA programs. They kind of give you some of that stuff as a business leader. So you don't know that these things exist, right? And it was a Goldman Sachs program that came into Utah that allowed, me to kind of qualify and go sit in an interview to see if I'm a somebody that can sit in their cohorts. And it just had a lot of us. So we were all really collaborating and learning together as a business group that we're all, overwhelmed with business. But so my suggestion is find out if there's some local programs that have some MBA type material that you can wedge yourself into, and then it'll change you. Because as a technician, I'm good at that. Like I know how to put all that stuff. I know how to put a project together, right? But I don't know how to analyze my data, or how to deal with my P&Ls, or all the crazy stuff that a finance major or somebody in a bookkeeper or somebody knows that we just don't. We actually probably got into the trade because we didn't want to go to school. We wanted to build something with our hands. Do you know what I mean? We were techs, and we just don't learn that same way. You know what I mean?
So your dad pulled you in. How old were you at that time?
I was 23.
23, and at that time you didn't know how to use a fax machine.
No.
Not a ton about data and analytics. And so what were your sources? How did you gain that knowledge? How did you go about it?
Just time in the saddle. Like my dad had an Excel sheet that we'd just plug in our stuff that did our takeoff. We'd do our takeoffs on the roll-up plans, the paper plans, and mark stuff, right? So old school way of doing it. And you just inject that into the Excel sheet that he built, and it would spit out a number.
When did you take over for your dad? How long? So from 14, he had you in the trenches. At 23, he really had you in the business, and from the business operations side, not just technician. And then when did you take over ownership from him?
So I came in at 23, and he stuck around, but he started to lose interest fast.
As soon as you came in?
Yeah, like he was wanting to get into some real estate, and it just wasn't fitting what he was looking for. So he kind of started putting everything on me. He actually stuffed me into his office. He wanted to check out of our shop.
Did you take up golf?
No, he's not a golfer, pickleballer. He's a pickleballer. But so I kind of started being the business partner, I guess, to his brother, Scott. And we just kind of started working. My pops was kind of trying to manage some real estate properties for him and his brother. Like they were trying to wedge themselves into some cash flow, right? Some of the stuff, some investments. But probably 2 years, and then he's like, I'm done. I don't want this anymore.
As a 25-year-old.
Yeah, as a 25-year-old. And it was like I didn't know anything about equity and what does a partner look like in a business, right? I'm still trying to swallow even
Faxes.
running a team. Yeah, fax machines. Still not good at that, right? But, it was unnerving a little bit. At that moment, my uncle actually approached him and he bought his equity. So it was a little frustrating because he didn't even come to me with it, but I didn't even know anything about how to ask for it or what it looked like. I knew that an owner is an owner, right? So at that moment, like the writing was on the wall that it wasn't really going to be for me. So I decided, my father-in-law was wedging himself into an investment in Las Vegas, and they're doing some UPS maintenance. And I'm like, I'm young, don't have kids. Let's try it. Like, what's going to hurt? And I went there 6 months into it, learned a lot about business and not necessarily learned a lot about starting a business, right? And setting things up and understanding how things needed to be reported to my father-in-law. But I was stuck in this. It was kind of a nasty situation because it wasn't a successful opportunity, right? Like it actually didn't have as much ground for us to get into that space as we wanted it to. So it was a struggle. And 6 months into it, I'm like, Rich, I don't think this is something that you want to continue to pay me to do. And I continue to drain your money because we're not getting the turnaround that you want. So from there, I basically said, I'll just go back. I went and talked to my uncle and like, hey, I'll try to get in there. He wanted me back just to take all the estimating and stuff off of his plate because he didn't want to do it. And then, like maybe a year or so later, I started an erosion control business with a buddy of mine, and we just started making crazy money. Like, so I'm doing this in moonlight. Right, we're doing it after work and on the weekends, and just ridiculous amounts of money. And it was kind of when erosion control was becoming a thing in Utah. So it was big back east. They've got machines and stuff that put this silt fence in that protects waterways and stuff for storm drains. So we just bought a machine, bought some tractors, and we just started throwing this stuff in and charging per foot and making crazy money. And I wasn't necessarily going anywhere with my uncle, but I basically said, dude, obviously there's nothing here for me. I'm going to go and do this full time. And he's like, dude, I'll give you 20% if you stay here. If you sell what you've got going on there and stay here. So it was a bandwagon thing. Like people were starting to kind of migrate into the space. The rates were starting to drop, you know what I mean, as far as what we would charge. But it was it gave me, I guess, seed money to, for one, pay buy my house. So I basically, bought my house with it, built with that money, with the sale of that business.
The erosion control business.
Yep.
Okay.
And really just gave me a taste of what business, ownership looked like. And I just went whole heart into the VO side as a 20% business partner. Young, still dumb, right? Like terrified to keep the thing going, but
I feel like the universe, God, whatever it is, wants to give every single person as much as they want to take and as much as they want to handle. And I think that's that's the characteristic or the skill set that's required to handle it. Mental constitution or mental toughness to be able to go the next rep, the next rep, the next rep without any loss of enthusiasm and being able to bring it for the team every single day. Sorry, what were you going to say, Carlos?
No, I have a question going back to what Josh was saying, but on that. So do you think that someone's success in life is tied to their ability to handle tough situations?
Two things.
Directly related?
The quality of somebody's life will come down to the quality of their communication and the strength of their mind. And if you want to call it strength of their mind, their emotions, their spirit, just this unbreakable will, I think it's those two things. If you can communicate well and you can grind every single day, and that Rocky quote, like, it's not about how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit, how much you can take and keep moving forward. From a mental perspective, that's what it seems like it comes down to in entrepreneurship. Because if you have enough time and you're persistent, you'll win. Like, it's impossible not to. If you get enough at plates and keep swinging, you'll win.
I love that. Josh, going back to what you're saying, so you're in the thick of it, and you're having, there are good days, but also you go home and you're the one processing everything. And actually, I think Elon Musk said that the CEO or the owner is just a fancy title for dealing with the biggest problems of the business, right? Whatever no one can solve, it flows up to you. So you were there in that venture for 10 years, you said?
Which one?
So you are
For VO?
For VO?
Since
for how long were you?
Age 14, then you had like the excavate,
This erosion
company,
stuff, yeah.
and then you did a stint with your father-in-law for 6 months. But besides that, you've been at VO
I've been in it, yeah.
And how many years is that?
We're on 30 years this year.
30 years, okay. Over that time, during those difficult times, what kept you? You seem to be a very grounded person, like very calm and collected. What kept you going over the years? What kept you grounded over the years?
I would say that there was a little bit of a money drive, right? Like the desire to have wealth was one element of it, but almost like you love your team, right? Like I'm building something, and me personally, I'm an ops guy. Like, I am somebody who likes to watch the gears move, and if I can shift the gears around to make them work more smoother, more fluid, right, then I get a little bit of like that exciting, butterflies, right? Like, oh, this is it. This is awesome. I love to see efficiencies in businesses, right? Like, and I love it when it clicks. And I love it to do it when I have all my team clicking. Do you know what I mean? And it's complicated work. So the person who can spend the mental resources on the weekends and at night creating that excellence of, that organizational excellence, that, right, is the winners in my mind, right? Those are the guys that are going to be the winners at work. So, yeah.
That's fun. So money, there's a money drive, and there's you love working with a team and have seen the team click and progress and develop things.
We're what is cool about VO is we build stuff, right? Like, I can go along the highway here and I can show you all the buildings we've built, right? So from the office standpoint, right, I have to go to the filing cabinet and see what I got done all day. But from the field standpoint, you're building a hospital, right? You actually have a purpose that people need, a dependent, you know what I mean? Or we're dealing with air traffic control center, right, where it serves the public and it serves 2,000 flights a day, right? And we can't mess this up. So there's a little bit of community service to it that actually has some type of visual that you can look at over the years. You know what I mean?
I love that.
So tell me about your thought process as you're going through deciding whether to sell VO or not.
Well, let's call it what it is, right? So I've got a group of partners, and they've been amazing. And VO couldn't be VO without what it is, what they've had, and what they've contributed to it. We've grown like crazy, right? And we've grown without really having good standards. I mean, I've talked to you guys about. I love the operational systems that you can create, but we still had lack of financial data, financial understandings, and business intelligence with our finances. I kind of got to that point where I still got to develop business. I still got to negotiate projects. We're still trying to invest into tech and trying to inject technology into our deck. But it takes somebody to want to spearhead that, right? So my partner group, I mean, we're getting older, right? I'm now 43, and
That's so young.
yeah, I know, but my partners are kind of nearing that place where, okay, well, we need to start thinking about retirement. You know what I mean? So I was this young buck full of piss and vinegar. I wanted it all, man. Like, let's get this thing going and be cool. And I just felt resistance all the time to growth, right? Putting more overhead in our building. And when you come up against that disalignment, right, then you start to lose interest in the partnership. And it's complicated. I can't just fire this person, right? I have to go through some type of liquidation event, or I got to go into some type of purchase agreement with them, or, so it was, all right, these guys are kind of, they're not interested in what I am. So what does that mean for me? Prior years, I bought a mobile home park, because I wanted to get into investing too. I wanted to understand how to make cash flow and eventually get out of this. So, was that going to be my future identity? Is that going to be what I want to be? Does VO just kind of stall? Right? And if it stalls, am I doing a disservice to my team? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, well, if we're not growing, we're dying, right? We're not investing into our people, we're dying. Why would anybody want to be on my team anymore? So, when you're sitting there evaluating your existing partnerships and saying, okay, what is my future identity want to look like? Do you know what I mean? I've done this for a long time, right? Like, I've worn all the hats. Is this what it looks like to the finish line? Me playing mechanical, right? And it was kind of at that moment, it's like, guys, I was getting bombarded by acquisition requests. I was probably 6 of them a week that was coming at me.
Every day saying, someone said, I want to buy your business.
Yep. All over the country, 6 of them a week. And I'm like, what the heck is happening right now? So I did a round robin with my team. And I'm like, guys, is this what we probably ought to start looking for? And, I've got a younger partner. He's actually probably 40 this year, but he was buying a previous partner out. And he wasn't interested in selling. He just got in, right? Like, I don't want to sell. Like, we just started. And I'm like, well, it's kind of a time we need to look into it, right? So we all just kind of made the decision that let's go down this process to see what people are even paying, and it was an investment just to get a sim deck built, for a company to kind of push us around. And just started getting bombarded by offers. like LOIs and interviews. And so me, it was like, I've already got a full-time job. Well, I was taking some days off here and there, but my negotiation stuff still had to happen to keep the business going, but then the full-time job started shifting into the courting, right? Like the people coming in wanting interviews, wanting to jam into what this wants to look like and how I would fit with them, and am I a fit? Are they a fit for me and our company? Like, we still love our team, so we needed to make sure that the people we were going to connect with actually was a step up, an opportunity for growth for our team. Like, this had to be a merge, a partnership that inspired the company. Do you know what I mean? So it was a long, drawn out process, like back and forth, probably, I don't know how many interviews I had. But thankfully, we've got Zoom and Teams and stuff like that where we can do this stuff. So, but it still was, a drag. But the multipliers were legit. And I started to kind of learn through the process that there is so many of my competitors getting bought right now. Like, I didn't know that guy got bought. I didn't know that guy. Oh my gosh, that guy got bought. Like, holy cow, everybody's getting bought. So obviously private equity is making a ginormous push into our space. And it's mainly just because we're more of a stable kind of outfit versus an AI group, right? Or something that's going to be impacted by AI. We get our hands dirty. We build stuff. We're value as far as when it comes to building things. So people were looking at that as, hey, let's jump in that way.
What advice do you give? So the audience for the podcast are entrepreneurs and sales leaders. If there's an entrepreneur listening to this and he's starting to get bombarded with, acquisition questions or offers, so you've gone down that path. What advice do you give this person in terms of how to best prepare your business and for the best valuation possible, as well as a good exit experience?
Get in with an entrepreneurial group, right? Like what we've had. Just be able to jam with, entrepreneurs, let, experience share for sure, right? But be ready, to really shake up your identity. Like, is this truly something you want? Like, what's the reason you got into this in the first place? Do you know what I mean? Because VO, I think prior to some of the EO stuff we've been doing, I think VO was a lifestyle business for me, and I was going to be probably a permanent fixture to that. And as I had learned, right, like, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I got to be thoughtful of what and how my transition. I can't run as fast as I could. I can't jump as high.
What do you want to do outside of VO? What drives you?
So there's been some projects that's triggered a change in my head, right? I used to be somebody that was very transactional and about money and consumed by it. And, there's people that make those statements that, the people who talk, they complain about, or they say, you don't need money or whatever, is the people who have too much of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you don't care about money because you got money. Do you know what I mean? So the reality is that I still want to serve humanity. Does that make sense? I still want to actually invent things. I want to add value in everything that I do, and that wants to be my focus. And I believe that profit follows that, right? If our target focus is profit, then there's no value. But if your target focus is value, then your byproduct is profit, right?
What are your guiding principles on what you want to create?
Expand on that for me.
Maybe I can steal some words out of your mouth from prior conversations. Triple bottom line. That's something that we've talked about. We've talked about affordable housing. We've talked about some of the cool things that you're doing to purify water. Can you just talk? I think that's such a treat for me to be in a room with. Well, I was on a flight back from Costa Rica talking about that stuff with you. Can you share a little bit about those? What is triple bottom line, and what are you doing to purify water in a new, unique way?
I can't get too crazy with the science behind the water. But the objective is to change water and do it mechanically. So that would be kind of the way you would provide it, because a lot of the water treatment systems that are happening these days are done with chemistry, right? You want to disinfect water, you shove a bunch of Clorox in it, do you know what I mean? And it kills things. But there's other ways to actually do that too, that doesn't need so much of the chemical.
Physics.
Mm-hmm, with physics. Yeah. So we've gotten a pretty cool product. We've got a cool nuclear physicist. She's awesome. Like I'm just impressed by what they've created. And I'm the plumber guy, right? Like I don't know that goofy space math. She does. Like, she's got that down, but I can put all the components together and integrate it into anything. So the triple bottom line is, when you look at an investment, it wants to be something that has self-interest, right? And it wants to be something that has community value, and it has something that actually benefits the planet or some sort, right? So, fixing water is a planetary benefit. Fixing affordable housing, right, is a planetary benefit if you can do it right. So, if those are my guiding principles, then if I'm going into an investment, I can't invest into something that's going to be a detriment to society. It's just going to be a cross off, even if it has 700% return on investment. It's gonna take away my interest.
How does somebody that's going through this process of redefining themselves or finding their purpose, what advice do you have for somebody going through that process?
You almost have to take a minute and sit down, right, and create that chief aim or that vision document that really paints the story of what you want, right? Like, what do my kids want to look like? What do my wife and things, what does that want to look like? Where do we live in the future? And actually creating a story that helps you be focused on it, right? Like it helps you make decisions because this is what the story wants to be as you're driving it. That vision, like I went to, like I'm telling, the entrepreneurs that you guys are talking about, I went to an executive education program in Babson in Boston, right? And the biggest thing that I walked away from out of the whole event, like they hit everything from, marketing to ops, there's so many cool values that came from it. But the biggest takeaway for me was just vision, like become the visionary, right? Like I can't tell you how that was for me just to say, I am that guy. Like I need to use my imagination to create whatever world I want, right? And then when I write it down and I become persistent in its development, it manifests itself through action, right? So it's not mumbo jumbo or goofy stuff. It's just your wholehearted obsession to something, And if you don't have that vision, you're going to chase yourself, right? You're going to spin around in circles.
I'd love to hear both of your answers on this. I love that, Josh. I think there's a lot of people. I personally know a lot of people, and both within my family and people that are close to me, where I see certain actions and their lives are just there's not a lot of progress going on right now, and I'm going to give an example. So December 31st, I'm in my bedroom and I'm working. I think I spent like 4 or 5 hours on my plan for my goals and plans for 2024. And I can get, and I know we're different, but I can get people around me to do the same. Like they want to spend 10 minutes on their goals. And I was literally talking last week of last year. I talked to this friend and they said, hey, like work on your goals, spend good time on it. And then last week I was talking to this person and their life is just unorganized right now. And there's just, that person doesn't feel like they're in control of their life right now. And in my mind kept going back to like, you didn't spend time on your vision. Now you're not in control because you don't know what you're supposed to do, right? Why do you think that people don't spend time on that? Why is it such a hard thing for a lot of people to spend time on a vision?
So my answer, like, you just erupted a fire of furious indignation inside of me, because the world does not want you to rock the boat. Like, you go and sell your business for millions of dollars and everyone's pissed because everyone else could have done it. Like, there's not this thing that you had that no one else had. You just had the guts and the balls and the perseverance to stick with it for 30 freaking years while everyone else wanted to take the stress off, hang it up on somebody else, and so they hung it up on you and you said, yeah, I'll take it. This quote came to mind as you're talking, that the reasonable man sees the world and conforms himself to the world, and the unreasonable man sees the world as he wants it to be and then conforms the world to meet his unreasonableness. So all progress is dependent on the unreasonable man. I think that's what it comes down to. Like, what you want and what your life is right now, Carlos, is unreasonable for somebody to expect 5 years ago. Like, you're living in Brazil, you don't speak English, you expect to be an executive making tons of money in the US 5 years from now, like, good luck. That's an unreasonable request, and everyone in your circle wants to push you down those crabs in the bucket, right? They keep grabbing that crab that's about to get out and pull them down because they don't want to see that somebody else is progressing because it says so loudly to them, you could have done it. And so then they make up all these things. Well, you're immoral, you're sacrifice. You must not have a good relationship with your spouse. You must not have a good relationship with God. You must be ungrounded. You must be greedy. Because how could somebody that is virtuous go and accomplish what you accomplished? So, got me on a little soapbox, but I can't stand
It's a little bit of passion there.
People that just go through their entire life and they keep thinking it's going to be different, going to be different, going to be different. And then, like, life's not this fairy tale ending. They just die. Like, that's the end of the story. They live out their life conforming to what the world said, which is mediocrity. And they never get to experience that pure happiness that comes from hard work and progression. And then the end is death. And that's it. Their story's done.
Love to hear your take on that, Josh.
Spot on. I think a lot of the times people don't know what they want. And they're unwilling to put it on the paper. They're unwilling to chase it. You throw a dart at nothing, you'll hit it, right? The difference is the people who know what they want know how to reverse engineer it, right? And progress is incrementally moving towards that goal, right? So compounding interest, right? It's not only money, it's small incremental wins every day, right? May seem insignificant, but over 365 days, it's magnificent, right? So you tired of your messy garage, right? It might be a 6-hour event that you have to go in there and commit to it, right? Well, what if it's like multiple days of 10 minutes, right? Like I'm going to pick up this little section over here and I'm going to put it away, and then I'm going to go in and indulge on whatever. Tomorrow I'm going to do the same thing. By the end of the month, your garage is pristine, your car is pristine. All these things are pristine because you've created a system of habits, right, that are intentional towards what you're desiring. So as simple as it is, people are lazy. Call it what it is, right?
And I want to be cognizant of the real struggle that people are going through to have the life that they want, because we all have people in our circle that want a life similar to us, right? And they continue to persist. They call us up and like, hey, dude, like this is the time I'm going to do it. I'm on it. And then they don't. And we encourage them and we encourage them. And I think that I think that's why I'm so mad and passionate about the expectation of those around them, because if they could figure out how to ignore the voices, how to get out of the fear mindset, how to change their state, and to surround themselves by people that are approaching life from a fearless perspective, like they would actually accomplish it. And if I were in their state, if I had experienced the things that they had experienced, and I would probably have similar outcomes. So I think step one isn't just saying, I'm going to strap up my boots and go to work. I think state one is find the boots that you want to put on that are surrounded by other people that are wearing the boots and doing the work that you want to do. And then you can't have a significant environment change for a significant period of time without adapting to that environment. So I think that is step one. If somebody's going through this process, like take a step back, figure out what you want, figure out the environment of the people that are having those things that you want, and then immerse yourself into that environment. Like that's step one. And then everything else will happen. Everything else will fall into place. You can't be around people setting goals and that are intentional without setting goals and being intentional yourself. But if you try and do it without changing the environment, like it'll just be this sad cycle of, I really want this, but then I get fearful, or then I come up with an excuse and continue to get more of what I don't want, which enforces the fear that you're already in. So you got to change the environment.
I love that. I'm so glad that you touched on vision, Josh. I want to go back and ask you 2 questions. Cord usually asks one of these questions, so I'll steal from him on these episodes.
Take it away as thunder, bro.
So you, going back to the business side, you 30 years at VO. What were maybe 1 or 2 of the Cord calls it fetal position in the shower moments, or chewing on glass moments that you had as an owner and CEO as you're running that business?
The fetal moments, I've had a couple of those just through, like, particularly projects that are going bad or sideways or are happening and you had no idea this is what you got yourself into, right? We were doing some project up at LDS Hospital. We were doing some boilers. The people who hired us didn't really want to go through a planning phase. They were just kind of like, hey, all this equipment's showing up, kind of put it together. Red flagged, right? Like, why in the heck would anybody do that now, right? But at the time, it was a prospect for us. Like, it was an opportunity to get in there and shine and do some cool things. And I just remember being stuck in it and everybody wanting to hang me for it, right? Because I'm trying to solve the problem. But the project, it was a failure. Do you know what I mean? We still got it installed. It still worked, right? But it was a failure from me. And just even dealing with just the weight. I remember standing next to one of the boilers one time. I'm like, man, it would be just nice if this boiler blew up, and because you're feeling that weight and you just want it to go away. And, and you've got, conflicts at home, or, you got other people in your orbit that are going through relationship issues. That's only compounding the feeling of what that is. And depression happens from these scenarios, right? That chronic stress just leads to a place where you're just like, is this worth it for me to even be here? So I just remember sitting there that one time. That was me, in that fetal position. And the same was with the air traffic control center area, right? Like, we were the right group to go and do it. We knew everything about what they're needing to do, but there was so much fear about it. Do you know what I mean? Because it really was like we had to be precision on every single movement we made on the site, just to make sure that nothing goes wrong, because it is a support system for air travel. But I remember just feeling the weight. I remember even going we went to Mexico when we were in the midst of this project, and I'm just like, man, this whole thing, right? We're involved in something that could close this whole thing if I did it wrong. Do you know what I mean? So, not saying that the group would have allowed us to go down and do it wrong, but, it's construction. Things can happen, and it would have resulted in an enormous financial issue with our economy, or with our government, right? And we just didn't want that, and I wore it. And I wore it way too heavy. I cared way too much, and I really, at the very end of it, I really admired who these guys were that actually support our community. Like, behind the scenes, these guys, you don't even know they exist. But, man, when you see what they do, you then have a different appreciation for who they are. You know what I mean? You're just thankful, and you get mad. I mean, obviously we're in this era of time where, you got right and left that are fighting over everything, and there's a lot of that, government, that slander of the government side of things, when these guys are government and they are doing something that needs so much appreciation, and there's so much of that goes on, right? So yeah, we can close out government, call them inefficient, call them this and that, but they care, and they're not stuck there. They're not focusing on profit. They're not focusing on this. They're focusing on their purpose. Do you know what I mean? So there's probably a lot of these. There is probably some government agencies that probably don't need to exist per se, but there's some that you just admire that they actually do. But, that particular project was a shift in my head that said, is life really about money? Do you know what I mean? Why is this my pursuit? Because I had never felt a part of the community and something bigger than that project.
I love that perspective. And as you're sharing those experiences, I think difficult is not even the answer. It's more than that. But as you're sharing that, it keeps coming to my head. There's a quote that we've said here in the podcast quite a few times. Heavy lies the head that wears the crown, right? You're in Mexico, and all your mind's there, and just can't explain how mental and exhausting it is, right? To go through something like that. I'd love to hear the flip side. As an entrepreneur, what's been the best thing that you've ever built? Like, what's the one thing that you're most proud of during your time as an entrepreneur?
I think having built a respectable company that's worthy of being, picked up by a partner group is cool. Like, getting that feeling, or that idea that you've created something that has value. And, I would say from the entrepreneurial journey, that's pretty satisfying for me. Do you know what I mean? I and But I would almost dare say that the friends I've created, right, my team members, right, I just love these guys. Like they're my friends, and we go out and we intentionally take them out just to have fun with them. Like we'll go on a resort, we're on a big resort. We'll all just go get it all duded up and go. And I just admire them, right? I admire what they do. And also the other friends in the industry, right? Like the ones that truly mean something to the company. Like I just can't wait to do something for them. I just love them. I don't know. What would yours be, Court?
I have not started to accomplish the things that you've accomplished or built what you've built. So,
But you're still on that entrepreneurial journey, right? Like what's been the magic?
I don't know if I have a magic moment. If I think of the thing I'm most proud of building over the last 7 years, I think it would be, I have not mastered this, and I don't know if people ever do, if it's just this pursuit, but the ability to be present. I've been in this podcast we've been talking for almost an hour. There's a lot of stuff that's happening outside of life right now, but my mind's been here for the last hour. And then this afternoon I'll have some stuff I'll gotta deal with. I had stuff to deal with yesterday. And I think that skill has been something I've been proud of, and for me defines quality of life in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that being present, I would say the most dreaded job that I've got is keeping the pipe full, right? Keeping the pipeline full of opportunities. That living in the future, right, creates fear and anxiety, right? Like it creates, oh man, I'm running into a hole for my team. The weight's starting to pressure up. Living that takes away living now. Do you know what I mean? And it's hard. It's hard to break that.
I feel like it's like anything else, like that muscle. Like if you were to go through that experience again, having the weight of a project, flying to Mexico, I anticipate you would be different. I remember so many specific things of like, we're going to lose this customer. We just screwed up with Wells Fargo. Like we're going to lose Wells Fargo. And how that consumed every part of me and my relationship with Courtney and my being present as a dad. Like we were in the hospital and Courtney's like been induced, but she's it's just where are you? I was there like mentally when the baby came out, but like there's the before and after where like I got to take care of these things. And I think you create processes, you put people in place, and you control your mind to a degree where you can go on to accomplish greater and greater and greater things and have more and more pressure. But just like working out, you've gotten better, and so you can handle more.
Every single project that you talked about, Carlos, it is so horrible. That weight is just so horrible on you at the time. But literally, like you wrap it up. So I remember actually going to one of my customers, and I would say he's one of my favorite people. And he's a high level guy at Big D, right? And I was so overwhelmed with this LDS project. I needed to talk to somebody. I didn't have anybody that could help me out of my thing. I couldn't talk to my wife and kids. I couldn't talk to anybody because they didn't know. They didn't understand what it is you're dealing with. I called my buddy up and I'm like, dude, can I come talk to you? Like, I really need help. Right. And it's hard because this guy, you know, you don't want to expose any weakness because these guys still offer you jobs. They still want to make sure you're stable. Do you know what I mean? They don't want risk on theirs. I remember going over to his house. I went in and I sat in his desk, and I was almost crying, right? Like, I didn't even know, like, I was so overwhelmed with this. I was crying, and he was just like, dude, this will end. This will end, and it'll be fine, right? This is some of the things that I would do, for, you know, if I was in your spot. And he guided me through that. And I'll never forget it. But I got through the project, right? It ended. It really wasn't a big deal. It wasn't as big a deal as I was making it out to be. But I learned so much about my business, right? All these gyms start coming up and you're just like, holy cow, I need to be better at this because we failed miserably on it. So I'm going to build something in my systems for that. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to just get organized. Like, the whole thing was miserable, but ginormous in what VO then became after. And the same thing with, you know, the other project I talked about. You're in this mess of nasty, and man, everything that you saw that went wrong, you have the ability to make right. You know what I mean? And it just builds you, and it builds your team, and it builds your character. You know what I mean? It probably takes some life off of you. Like, you might, you know, one of your 9 lives you might have 8. But
So maybe it's not actually that it ever gets easier. We just get faster. We just get stronger. We just get more capable, and then we attack harder things. And we still go through the fire of refinement, and it's unbelievably difficult, but it's a way bigger thing and a bigger problem and a bigger value add to the world that we're going through in that moment. Then we stack those on top of each other.
Yeah. It's that craft, that knowledge you've created through the worst of the whatever you went through, right? It's converted to knowledge. And then we're dumb enough as entrepreneurs to want to reach for higher levels and take on the even harder job and find yourself in an even worse situation. You know what I mean? But then you go through the grind, and then you become even better. And then the people, right, that don't want to do that, they'll never learn it. And they won't have that as a skill set.
Well, last question, Josh. Carlos asked you too, but he didn't steal the one that I was going to ask you. I usually ask what advice you give to yourself in your 20s, but I'm actually curious to know, being so raw and fresh off of a sell of your business, what advice would you have given to yourself 3 months ago or 4 months ago when you're in the mix of preparing for exit?
It's a hard one, man. Because I honestly feel like it's gone somewhat well. Do you know what I mean? And it's not over, right? I still got to make sure I keep the pipeline fed, right? So it would be, I don't know if I've reached that point yet where I've got something bad to tell you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I haven't uncovered that yet. But honestly, if you were to ask me, my 25 something or other self, right? Like, take the time to understand what you truly want and desire in your life. Like, what do you want to become? And write it down like you do on your vision board. Make it your daily journal. Make it everything you look at and think of and consume yourself with, and wholeheartedly invest your time and energy towards it. And it will be exactly what you want it to be. There might be variations of it that you're like, man, I didn't catch that, right? COVID shifts the world, right? Changes things and hurts you differently. It just springs up on you. So you're going to have to change, you're going to have to, you're challenged by those variations in life. But if you're generally targeting it, it's going to get damn close. So.
Josh, love you, bro. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks,
Love you
Josh.
too.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
It was amazing.
You've been watching Hello Grow, the world's #1 growth podcast. I'm Cortland Brady.
I'm Carlos Souza. If you've watched this video so far, it means that you like the content that we're putting out and the people we're interviewing.
We're putting together a community of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales leaders. You liking, subscribing, and sharing this content helps us reach those that are going on that journey.
If you want to be a part of this community, please subscribe, smash that like button, and turn on those notifications.